Lamrim Yamlin Jagi, that Gotangbo, that gave Shin Tenzu, Yadi, that Decor Kissing Decor Shivare, that gave Shin Dizocom, Sadi, and Gomuchidi, and Yelia, Sosa, Tibetan Jawadi, yes, Jawadi. Then also, Munshikomia de la Garakumburas and kissing on the Latambo, and then she gave Shin Timbi Pench Samda. And the case you might by na and the chick, Susulia, Nimi, Young, then your recipe, on to say some done, then they gave Shinya and the chick, Yun, Tommy, Lord Namia, Kichu me, Sampigate, Dom Semdi, to send some da. Then some done, then do some days, Rangi Dunia, that gave Shin in the setup or gave Shin sat up and gave Shin in the that chick Rangi Lama. 这上业当我也没什么大些，对呢，那给微信的那贵元的、送贵元的、古送土送元的，那喇叭送元，咱们人把元的这个说说元的这个都现在每个元的这个都是这个什么的这样子，这样子，都现在呢，那那么呀，那什单位给对吧？都是那公务员噻，对呢，买几把都是公务员噻，但人把当部就公务员直接。 公会的职责，但你把的那南美个让了呀，这个嘛，按确些南端节都是呢，那这个人，然后就进去电节他把他们这全部国王对吧？南都是电源电源在南美个说是呀，都是往南哟的龙南哇当，但那个南人们人把这个都是电源的是呗，但那个电把这个。 所以呀，给人讲话真是那么白嘛是，然后呀，真情不的，给真情不修因什么些，很多现在那么呀，古巴节呢，古巴节话就公过那些，但国面的都现在什么单位的，结果我们都吃多当不，那么有古松对原来那些原来的个发展，那就台湾国面。 安尼的那个南美个让了呀，去咱们人把电节都写电把的，都是很多节把的个都上大节，安尼被那么的俺了呀，真钱把它给这些不因什么呢？安尼呀，那么呀，规划国面的都什么啥的，公我些的切过了话的，但给微信的公些的，第什么大的话的都是呢，样的什么大的，那第才有节了，但所以囤的咱们家的节了呀，那。 的那个公别个就给我的个呀，我公别我接的都是呢，这些的，那个现在都的确了，但那屯比个公别个地税的感觉公务人，那就屯系的单位呢，那土壤的、亚洲的、汽车的，所有这样都是屯系界的公务这些的，可是俺都地块的需不着的。
Good evening. So we're continuing to look at the Lama Tsongkhapa's middle Lamrim, of which the very first major meditation topic is that on the spiritual teacher. So this was something that we looked at in some detail a little while ago. Now we're on the subject of how to meditate on the various topics of the Lamrim. So taking the one that has been presented thus far, that of relying on the spiritual teacher, one starts the meditation first by engaging in those or those 6 preliminary practices that we looked at earlier in this topic. After that, one engages then in the main body of the meditation. So in this instance, where the topic is meditating on the spiritual teacher, one visualizes or imagines one's spiritual teacher before oneself, and then engages in the meditation as presented in what one has studied. So one thinks about the various qualities of one's teacher. Think of his qualities in terms of his physical activities, his speech and his teachings, and his mental qualities. Having reflected on those, then one reflects on his kindness, in particular his kindness in teaching and guiding one, as well as giving oral transmissions, bestowing vows and initiations. So in this way, one recalls his incredible qualities, as well as the kindness and benefit, the kindness he shows and the benefit he brings into one's life. And this is done to generate a deep faith and respect in one's teacher. And all those various meditation points are engaged in with analysis. So it's the type of meditation that's called analytical meditation. And also within that, one has as a determination that one will restrain one's mind from following any faults that one sees in one's teacher. When they arise, one will rather just let them go, rather than dwell on them. And then this analytical meditation on all these points, one engages in repeatedly over a sustained period. So even in one session, one will spend time on each of these points, looking at them, thinking about them from various points of view. So this then is the main body of the meditation, which follows the preliminaries, and then one comes to the conclusion. And that we looked at or concluded with last week, what to do at the end. So that's about dedication. And thereafter last week, we looked at the number of sessions and duration of the sessions.
Chicken, the nigger, and the late Dambo, and come on the Kapla, and to Relia, and Chicken, come the cat to Yura, Chicom, or Sundua, and the Mambu Union, which in there, Chicken, Kalaka, and Gelia, Chicomiag, Devamiavarus, Leg, and Yangayo, things that I wonder, come twin Tunu Chicomda, and the Yayo Sundua.
And we were advised that as beginners, it's better to have shorter sessions, because if one's sessions are too long, one will quickly develop a negative attitude towards meditation and may well give up. So therefore, one should rather start with shorter sessions.
That didn't ma Shuedila, that did Junzi, Tendu Songwana, and the Tun Song Sadi. De tamje layang, jowa hajang dam trabadang, höbige gyönan javar, yang de deni ge chungshin, hajang dada ge nyungshin sa, hajang dubadang, jingmu so jivar gyuros.
Let's turn to the text and continue with where we concluded last week. So we're in the handouts, page 58 in the middle of the page, or in the published book on page 51. So we came to, finished looking at what to do at the end, and now we are on that second paragraph thereafter, which starts with, if your sessions are long. We're about halfway through that paragraph, starting with, once they have stabilized a bit, prolong the sessions while maintaining them all free from the fault of excessive tension or slackness. If you practice in this way, you will have few obstacles, and exhaustion, laxity, and lethargy will be pacified.
Junzi Tendu Songwana, Sida Dambo, Zugile Dambola, Lamalia, Chikuson to Indian Delia, and the same time with Deva Commu Kabla, and Tene Comje, De Sit Tembo Yara, Chimba in us or Comne Tenege. Mi batike yara chimpa temper, temne to Gunuru, Netuaki temper to Joyadu, and the Garjorson, Tun single, or say, Della Tun Sungla, or you sing there, you say you sing us. Tun sings, Tun just Guring Tango, that go to Comja, down let down bola, down ball, and Chikununoche. Then they come, just Comja, just Yarge Chin or do, and just Tun Guringa Tango, or Tanala, Tun Junzi. Junzi Tendu Songwana, Tun Sing, said Guring to Tankombo.
Once they have stabilized a bit, so stabilized here refers to in the meditation where, for example, one's meditating on the qualities of one's spiritual teacher, and faith is arising. When this faith now starts to arise and abide, and thereby be more stable, then one is ready to prolong one's session.
Mm-hmm. And Dela Yang San Jowa Hajang Dam Trabadang, Hu Trapiki, Juntan Trava, Yang De, said that the nigger Gombe Kabla Soring on the De Tamjela, said the Niki Ganlia, and then Lemme Kuson to you in the Janche, Delia, Deva Comiadan, Lemme Ralia, Che Son Biki, the Getting the Janche, and then Guva Combi Kabla, and the Tamjela Yang said that. Jowa Hachang Damtrava, Combe, Sembo, Shukchamba, Damtrava, Ajikyo Mareje. And the Chiang Lurtava, Lurchimbu, Lurtava, Jikyo Mareje. Chesanda, Sem, Combe, Sem, Damba, down, Jimba, down, Lurvani, the Chanyum Roach, is a rather Chanyu, the Damshiru, Damtrava, Maimba, she will Lurtava, Maimba, Chicken, Dam Gyundan, Java, Yanti, the Negi Gyun Mevache, and do she Chanyum Betonia Gomu, Ejere. Java,
the sentence continues, prolong the sessions while maintaining them all, and this maintaining them all, so Geshe says, then this, it's clearer in the Tibetan, but it refers to all the points of the meditation. So if one is meditating on the qualities of the teacher and it gives rise to faith, then when that's stable, one can move on. But this, it refers not just to that aspect of the meditation, but all the various points of the meditation, such as recalling the kindness of the teacher, the benefit that he brings into one's life, and then the other the outlines in the topic, such as the benefits of relying on a teacher and the faults of not doing so. So when all of this is quite stable within one, then one is ready to move on, and to do so with a mind that is free from faults of excessive tension or slackness. In other words, one's mind should be balanced between being overly slack or overly tense.
Dating Hanzu Kapsubaba, Givishin Dunse comes to the Sungorwa. In that Jidan Wadangazuki, Chikishinio Combe Tambo Kablina, Chicom Karakamina, Chicom de Tambo Combe Kablaya, and Chicom Mipa del Pech, Damtrava Mayemba, and the Chik Lertava Mayemba, Chanyo Combe, the Chiva Chaviro Chasana, Comchasan, the Chiva Ugorwa.
This advice is to be applied in all other topics too, and where it's most clearly presented is in the topic on the cultivation of calm abiding, where from the outset one needs to hold the object, but in a balanced way, not veering to the side of being overly tense in one's mind, or one's mind holding the object in a way that's overly tight or too loose, but rather to hold the object in a balanced manner. So the meaning is the same here, and it should be applied in whatever one's meditation topic.
Sem Mipala Miche, Sem Shukchum Damtravaina, the Gangayuresa, Dubas, the Gangar Sevas, Hajan Dubas, Best Gangash, Semlia, Gangashuchi, Shulo, Master Shuja, the Sem, the Gangalu, Ganga, the Gangash Junguresa, Duba, Chesanganga, then they are Bashirwa. Then they heard about the Sem heard how in the Garim Jinwa Yungures, Muba Yungures, and the socks that they didn't consume Niku Yungures or the Genega Bashi Yungures, Chesa, Sem heard up by Jinwa, Mupada, Dene, Nikuya, Sopage, Bashi Yungures. And she said she would me by the mean a Damtrava ina, and this Chick Lucimbia Gangash Yungures, Chesa, Dene is at that same day, Mibala Dene, Chu Damtrava Mayemba. Same department heard of my Chanyum Jade and Lucimer Gangameva and the Neke Nimuti, Moyon Parsheti, Muati, Ungres, the Jesan Care News, the caretakers and Semla Gangayobata, Nida, Mupatang, and the Gasore, Jimati, Yoyati, Cartaki, Muyongres, Care Musing, Hajang Dubata, Ni Muk so sure Guros, Young Mares.
This paragraph concludes with, if you practice in this way, you will have few obstacles, and exhaustion, laxity, and lethargy will be pacified. So this is referring then to meditating, where one is holding the object, but the object of this term object means what one is meditating about. So whatever topic one is meditating about, the mind engages with it in a balanced way, not overly tight or too loose. And if one does so, one will have fewer problems or obstacles, such as exhaustion or fatigue, as well as laxity and lethargy. These obstacles will be averted if one engages with the meditation topic, if one's way of the mind engaging with the meditation topic is balanced between being overly tight or too loose.
아다디 내가 저기 이제 곰모시 제비 갑리야 안삼 곰나디기 두세 곰오레야사지 디루와 데디스모르와 안디레 다데네마다 튼메 지게 튼삼지 갑리야 삼다나디 가르가르체 오르세 디스모르데 마슈에디다.
So this advice here then at the end, how to meditate, would have been referring primarily to the main part of the meditation or the actual meditation session itself. So now, having concluded what to do in the meditation with the preliminary, the main session and the conclusion, we now come to what to do in between meditation sessions.
Dangbo miba ji bo duen nis, jir cha dang gorwa dang kai duen so, duma shi yue jiang zo ni tun yung o lan be ne, tun dang wi ge sam su, jiang yu miba nam la, zhen xie ma dian bar jian yang do dang na, jie xin du chung wei, tun sam su yang de duen bi che nam da wa dang. 네 양양 전바당 윤진 지위 튼진 소 고두만에 소징 개인 지부 중화양 고두만에 자스 아니 탐지 예시 아니 개랑비 수준 라 돔셈만도 자오사시.
So now coming to what to do in the periods between sessions. So I'll just be changing one word in the second line. Generally speaking, numerous practices enhance the object between sessions, such as prostration, circumambulation, and commitments. Commitments, I think, works better than recitation, but it's the same word. However, the main point is that if you make an effort in the session itself, but then during the intervals between sessions, you carelessly let go of the causes for maintaining your focus, by not relying on mindfulness and vigilance of the observed object, along with its subjective aspect, the outcome will be very little. Therefore, between sessions, you will also need to read Dharma texts presenting that object and recall it again and again. Accumulate by various means the conditions that are favorable for the rising of excellent qualities, and purify by various means the adverse conditions, the obstructions. Your determination regarding the vows you have promised to uphold, the basis of everything, should be reaffirmed regularly.
Dangbo mikba ji bo dunba ne se da jinang an ya ji mikba le mi je gom je ya ge ro la se or da bo dunba se de ya ge chin ba se or bo dunba ni da ngan ju ji ge we ji gom je ge we samlo de ya ji ya ge chen ya da ne ngan ju gom de le ya ge don ya do ya ge don da la ane gar je ro se ne ji dan cho de ne gi ne ji ge Dandalani Karakiawatuya Kariore, Sidan Cha Sevala Sobada, and the Gora, and the Karinjea, and the Jige, Chegopuya La Soba, and the Jige, Dumashi, your age among your age or what? Dumashi, your age. Dumas and among your age or Damaje.
Looking at the first sentence, generally speaking, numerous practices enhance the object. So again, this term object refers to the object of meditation, what it is one is meditating on. And enhance the kind of numerous practices. So the various virtuous practices that one engages in. Geshe added this word, virtuous practices, enhance object between sessions, such as prostration, circumambulation, and doing one's commitments or doing one's recitations.
Tesa dangpo mikpa se nga deji karsana gewe shenye la mikpa che andi ki kusong tu yun jen jen del ya deba tsechi tu sem dangwe ki deba ki ya ko komya ki komya tu nga zo yarge ka chokoro se lama la sem dangwe deba di ya shukchar tenpa chokwa di chokwa korwa jenda lami ki rang ya chue song jing kyampi ki gaiden jesu jen guiba komya di guiba komya di guiba di guishep di guiba kye di shuk chershi chokorwa jisen mipa di yargi doya de la siwa di yargi doya de la jidane ane gewa ni kasore gewa cheya de kar yores ane cha cheya yores kora yores ane kaden cheya yores ane chego puya la sobata di niki na mangbo yungurwa siwa da.
To make sure this is clear, let's look at it in the context of meditating on the one or the first meditation topic in the Lamrim, relying on the spiritual teacher. So one's object or the topic of meditation is the spiritual teacher. So one approaches it, as mentioned before, one imagines or visualizes the teacher before one, and then reflects on his various qualities expressed through his behavior, his teachings, and his mental qualities, as well as his kindness and benefit that he brings. And one engages in those various points of the meditation in order to generate faith and respect for one's teacher. And this is the part that particularly one strives to develop. This is the objective of the meditation. So the object of the meditation is this topic of the spiritual teacher. The objective of the meditation is to develop one's faith and respect for one's spiritual teacher. And then to support that objective of one's meditation, between sessions, then one engages in other virtuous activities such as prostrations or circumambulation or recitations.
Kiwi Shin Yi Kusung to getting Janje, Kiwi Shin Gubaya, what Kituba, then the Toba Dirwada, Kero, Chesan D and Nanzuke, Gaware D, Yaya Joyalaya, and Sunam Mutual Society, and Charsa, Kora Korada, Kadun Jabada, and the Nicho Puina, and Tisuki Yanjik, the Niki Yagi Joyale Pingo ratio, but I don't know Dirwa.
The objective of this meditation is to develop deep faith and respect in one's spiritual teacher. This is what one is trying to develop and to enhance, because this is a virtuous mind. And to enhance the cultivation and the development of these minds, the mind of faith and respect for one's teacher, one engages in complementary virtuous practices or virtuous practices that complement what one is engaged in meditation on, such as prostration, circumambulation, or recitations.
Give Shin me give Shin and the Kusan Yundin and Delia Deva Comedua, and then gave Shin Ralia Chus on the next getting Jesu Tenche and Google Comedua, Tunyung Ola, Bene, Comedua. Says that Tunyung Ola and Bene, Tun Bene, Tun Dawi, some sources, Tun Dawi, some sources, another Tun Pasha, called Barsam Castle. Pardon di sutilasi orvada tunyong ole bene tuntawe samsus.
So that then in that first sentence covers the topic of what to do between meditation sessions. But now Lama Tsongkhapa goes a little deeper into this, and he presents a further point. However, the main point is that if you make an effort in the session itself, but then during the intervals between sessions, so Geshe now read up to there. So the main point here actually refers to the main meditation topic that one has been meditating on in the actual meditation session. So it's the where we have. So what it's referring to is in the meditation session, one is primarily focusing on meditating on the qualities of the spiritual teacher in order to generate faith. So that is the main point of what one is doing here. So this needs to be borne in mind, because this is what one made effort in during the session itself. And then Geshe read as far as, but then during the intervals between sessions, or there can also be the breaks between sessions.
디네기 둔 삼수가 보다 차치야래 고라고야래 카든지야래 아니 저기에 저선 둔 삼을 지고로 와대 안데 야지 먼저 칼라사야 나디와 바지 지야도 말이제 저선 둔 삼지가 지고로 와 지네 디네 엔자다 장규 민남 시대다 나주게 둔 삼지가 수 삼다에 가르당고 그래서는 장규 민남 시대 나주게야 제네네 곰베 갑리야 아니 미남데 양우야데 가스네 미남데 가르스네 미바 가르스네 미바디 아니 랑게 케비 신인 사타 네 케비 신인디기 구송 투수 연된 젠지 제디 연된디 그 미바 차그로와 데네게 구 케비 신인 데미 케비 신인 구송도 연된 젠바디 데 가서 젠제 데라 대보 고미야 감나데 나주게 삼로 좋아데 미 남바세 디르데 미 남디샤 삼로 고미야들이 지산디 자주 미남 마덴바세오다 전시 마덴바스네 마덴바이나 지삼마다체 간실로 don다라 지송고레 당한주게 베네 고라 주디 갑라 네 개위 신예나 개위 신인기 아니 구송도 연대 데네게 젠제 라마레야 대바로 삼마다와체 지다는 거 다지게 고라줘야 저로 와다 지난 개와사기라 섬진아직 야 베네만 주게 상계랴 지게 상계다 안지게 전주 sembal라 소바도 되바다 지르 직 등에 카된 제바네 데네 되야라 소바다 엔디네게 온코라 온도야라 소바 차세와라 소 용구로와 개외신 대신 아주 개외신이 삼다 개외신이 구송도 연대 제야다 개외신이라야 진제비 진체보되게 삼마다와제 안지다는 아주게 제 상계랴 대바제야다 데네게 안지게 개와 개외 삼다제 현래 판별 삼다 되는지 고라고야다 차세와다 되는 용구로와 대디야 야부레데 진짜 디급소 가 삼당 거서는 벤데 상계를 쳐보이네나 랑게 라마다 상경오 예면서 라마데 제 라미 구송도 연된 젠비토네 아니 차부야다 최고부야 고라고라 아니 카든제반 두시오고레서다 디니 제비 갑라야 제 카든제다 고라고라다 차세베 내가부서야 라미기 아주 곰비 내가 라미기 다기비 신인도 곰야기 라메제 라미 구송도 연된에 제 아니 지게 라미기 라리아 진장바 진디에 텐제 될야 구바다 대바제제 아니 두시네 제고를 차세랑 고라고라서 봐 제고레에서 올다 돈나 장주 미바 마담바는 제고고레스 디 마담바체 디네 마제바이나 아니 샘디 샨다 장용도 따세도 디 삼마다제 삼로 샨다를 따제고 직제바이나 기신도 충세도 개위 신용 검주기 대바당 응구버디 또바제야 아니 제레 교보기도 말해서 올다 충충 말 기신도 충라도 교보기도 말에 막고 고고래서
There's, as I have in the outline, periods between sessions. So this is whenever one is not in formal meditation session. So as has been advised, this is when one can do activities such as prostration, circumambulation, or doing one's commitments. But it's also when one eats, one sleeps, one washes, and so forth. So it refers to every part of the day between when one is not in formal meditation session. So here then Lama Tsongkhapa goes on to advise us. So I'll start at the beginning of the sentence. However, the main point is that if you make an effort in the session itself, But then during the intervals between sessions, you carelessly let go of the causes for maintaining your focus. So this means by not relying on mindfulness and vigilance of the observed object along with its subjective aspects. So what this means is that if between sessions one is engaging, so rather when in between meditation sessions one is engaging in any activity, such as these specific virtuous activities mentioned, circumambulation, prostrations, and so forth, whilst it's good to do these virtuous activities, one must not lose what one was meditating on. And the primary, the objective of that meditation was to generate faith in one's teacher through recalling qualities and so forth of the teacher. So therefore, even when one is engaging then in virtuous activities such as circumambulation between session, one should do so with that mind, that faith that arose in the meditation, with being mindful of that. In other words, keeping it present in one's mind, recalling it, keeping it present in one's mind, and if necessary, whilst one is doing circumambulation, then repeating some of the steps of the meditation. In other words, recalling the qualities of one's teacher's behavior, speech, and mental qualities, and so forth, so as to regenerate the faith that one had cultivated in meditation. So in brief, what Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, having made great efforts in your meditation session to generate faith in one's teacher through this analytical process, when one is then going about other activities, even if there are virtuous activities, such as prostrations, do not lose what one had meditated on. In particular, we have the word here, being careless. This then, Geshe was saying, if one is careless, one's mind could go to anything else. In other words, something completely unrelated to either the virtuous activity one is doing or certainly what one was meditating on. So therefore, keep the meditation topic through mindfulness and vigilance present and alive and at the forefront of one's mind when one is going about whatever activities between sessions.
Dine zada tunsam suyang sirwa, tunsam suyang de tunpe che nam dawa da yang ya jan barja sidi tunsam su. Saba deshi ge shindu chungwe se diba de she sai ma. Dine ane ge shindu chungwa zada tunsam suyang kar che gora sene den tunwi samjibu to cha che wa dang gora gowa la so wa dang kai dun je ba dang ane ji anji tenegi kabla ine di membe dang anjo ge dosene lele debe kabla ine ya tenegi tunsam suyang de tuen be che nam dawa da se de ge wi xin yin dian zu ge sam dang dang ge ma dian xian ge che chi or ba ben de yuan de sam go re de ya de ba che wo re se on di che nam ya na che nam dawa da se de sem le zhang go re ka sem ge de ya sam dang go re se dawa se de nam yin ji da dawa de mi ge dawa se je go ro wa da dawa de yan da de ding an zu yi sam lo ge pa sam lo tong wa se de go go re dawa dang de ne zhen be ge yang yang zhang go re se de Lama de ge ran le jing qian bu yin se Lama yin de Lama de ya go re sem be du xin de yang ne yang de zhang go re zhang go ji za de 튠섬 비내고서나 차 세야 당 고라고야 당 안에신 간에신 되네게 야네 젬바 있나 아니 제일야 곰비갑리네 고 셈마서 뉴벌 마슈체로 와서 곰묘도 갑라 지코 곰시디 교수 두부래서 그래서 튠섬 이거라 야네 야나 삼당교 봐서 곰비가서 이 야가 곰투그래서 지상 야게 요가도 그래서 다 튠섬 이거서 디고 삼람 지기 라미고 이 삼마다제 삼르샤 야예도 세도 다 디삼마다제 삼르샤다 다제 두신 툰숨되베나 아주기 니메지르 튠시지데 튠지르 베네 주지 지지스네 튠시 주시르와 튠섬들 아니 니메지라 주지 중이나 시간 주지 예 동바 차무로 지산 예 이깔라야 주지 예 이래라야 야예도 파 삼르 라메다 라메인디 삼기네 마다샤샤베나 근데 뒤에 마한테 삼마다도 숙제로 해서 뒤에 삼다에디 뒤에 뉴아마도 매봐서 근데 고kom시 태야디 그래서 야게 줘야디 근데 네가 중국으로 와대. 제자데 so gombe ka main bai ne de tunsa mi ka blia chi de ne ba sha da sho lia de ne sam da we ne ko jamba ma che ba ani ji du se ne ya ne yang du liang du ani gombe ka blia ani chi ki ya ye zhuo shu che yo le se chi de sung gu duo da
Lama Tsongkhapa continues. Therefore, between sessions, you also need to read Dharma texts presenting that object and recall it again and again. So in this preceding point, the very first point was giving illustrations of virtuous activities one should do, one can do between formal meditation sessions. The second point that was made was that even when engaging in virtuous activities such as circumambulation, do not lose mindfulness of what you were meditating on. That needs to stay present within you, even when you're engaging in other virtuous activities such as doing one's commitments. The topic of one's meditation, this needs to stay present with one. One needs to remain mindful of it. Now, in this next point, Lama Tsongkhapa is saying that an additional virtuous activity to engage in between sessions is that of reading Dharma texts. In particular, or specific Dharma texts that specifically are on the topic of meditation. And this is so that when one is between formal meditation sessions, if one is reading Dharma text on the topic of meditation, it will serve to aid your mindfulness of the topic of meditation. Whereas if one is reading a Dharma text, but it's on a different topic, then one is distracting oneself from one's topic of meditation. And whilst one is still engaging in something virtuous, it's serving as an obstacle to the cultivation of your meditation object. Because what one is doing in meditation, if we recall the synonyms of habituation or familiarization, in the meditation, by repeatedly, over a sustained period, using the same analytical process of meditating on the topic on the same various points again and again, slowly going deeper into it, one is developing a habituation, in this case, to faith and respect for the teacher. Then if between meditation sessions, one keeps that in mind while, say, doing prostrations or doing one's commitments, and strengthens one's mindfulness by reading text on relying on the spiritual teacher, then one's habituation is being strengthened. Habituation to faith in the teacher is strengthened not only in meditation sessions, but also between those sessions. And this will mean one will come to gain realization so much quicker. So therefore, between sessions, one needs to ensure that one's mind is both virtuous, but also is on the topic of meditation, not distracted to another virtuous topic. And then to emphasize this point, whatever length one's meditation sessions are, over the course of a day, cumulatively, there'll be a significant number of hours that will be not in formal meditation. So they will be fall into the category of between sessions. And if one is using that time to keep if in that time one's keeping one's mind on the topic of meditation, on the qualities of the teacher, for example, then one's habituation to the objective of the meditation, faith and respect and trust in the teacher, that will grow very quickly, and one's attainment of realization will come about very quickly.
Give Shin Kusung Yundan Jembada, Dina Samada, Chatsevada, and Kawasaba, Koloso Kawasaba, Kawa Yabures, in a Dile Zo di Karesine, Denegi, and Chadam, Kora, Kortune, or Gomatuine, Tunzen Yugoso, Kasen, Gomegi, Tunjikoso, Gomegi, Minamdike, and the Yana, Yano, some Diana, and Tempachedi, Gichishore, Esora, and Digasen. Della di Tempiotoneda, Denigi Tempiotone, Chatham, Chapuan, Koradan, and the Kadunjevada, Dile Ya Chagrua, Niga, Niso Chagrua. Is that the same Gayado Taji, Dini Corle, Music, Comegi, to get some Mataje, some Shanda Taji, Koradan, Chatsevada, the Niki Chevin, Pensagordi, Digida, Tumusico, Comegi, Combi Capla, Topa di Mo, Combi Druelia, and Sherab, Shukchimu Pando, Mumares, Panic, Shinto Chues, Pando Mumares. The nigger some damba in that Tunsen Yugoso, and the niggy Charles and Kora Koreadan, Chevu Fuyokaso, and the Givishinigi, and the Indian Jemba and Delia, Devas Dushan, some down Comia, Jevine, and Yapores, and Digi, and the Kora Chapu, Charuch, Matuvina, Dushan, Relation, David Capine, played the niggers Yaniano, some damadi, Din Davine, and Dovaki, Casore.
To summarize this important point, one needs to ensure that one's train of thought between meditation sessions is in harmony with what one was meditating on. So that when one arises from the meditation session, where one has exerted oneself for a period of time, cultivating faith in the spiritual teacher, that when now one engages in other virtuous activities, or perhaps activities to sustain oneself physically sustain oneself, whatever it may be, one's mind stays on that meditation topic. This will then bring about rapid developments of the meditation topic within. But if in between sessions one engages in virtuous activities and one's mind moves to other trains of thought, there could well be other virtuous thoughts, other virtuous meditation topics. But because they are different from what one was just meditating on, it actually serves as a distraction from that main meditation topic. So whilst one will be in between sessions, if one is engaging in virtuous activities, but with a mind not on the meditation topic, one will accumulate virtue. But that will serve, though, that will still be a distraction from the main topic. Therefore, the outcome of one's meditation will be very little. The outcome of one's retreat will be the outcome will be very little. So therefore, it's important in between sessions to ensure that one, using mindfulness and introspection, one keeps one's mind on the meditation topic.
Deva Jinganzuki Lamiki Kustu to Yundin to some Mataja Sanjil, some Sanji, Michinan, Jingandu Chatsea, La Sopada, and the Jashu Sam Gomala Sobaja, and the Pen Department was Sairua. In a the Kivishin Deva Kumbigi, Decom di Shukcher to Goma, that Delia and Deva Jinganzuki Kivishin, maybe Deva Kumedilla. Lo Corona Comgura, Pen Tombani, Magombana, Janjisem Gazacombana, Tonyo to Bulo di Agetras Yomarawa. She said the Pingiri Bess and the Pingor, the Yomara, Tombani to be Lodi Agetobal, Tombani to Lo Coron Comniana and the Community Chertangura. Dina she, Tanzuki, Kivishin, let me be Devada, and the Gubatia, Lo Corona Comje, Yana and the Community Chertango, and Tunsam Jacobs in the Samtana. She said, "These some mataje, Tunsem Jigaso, Tipa, some died, Guinea, some Guinea Mahoaje, and Shanda some Dadushkeva to be near, and Denigi, Tobakia, 누가 충주마도 용말에 세지로하다 단단인보.
If one, between sessions, decides to move the body through engaging in prostrations, and if one then relies on one's former training in how to do prostrations, one will call to mind the qualities of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and then engage in prostrations. And this is certainly a virtuous thing to do, but it will not aid one's cultivation of deep and abiding faith in the spiritual teacher, because that is the main topic of meditation. So when one engages in prostration, one should do so with a mind of deep faith in the spiritual teacher, because this is the objective of the meditation retreat. Or to give another illustration, if one is meditating on emptiness, but between sessions one reflects then on compassion. Of course, it's tremendously virtuous to reflect on compassion, but no matter how much one reflects on compassion, it is not directly aiding one's cultivation of emptiness, which is the objective of one's retreat.
That you Jidan Yenden, that's Mambu Yubi Nani, and that the Kapsu Baba, and the Kivishin Yella, and it may be any same David, Debakia, Tang, Kivishin, getting Jesu change, Kubaki, and then Kiviki, Jagi, Tungelia, and so Mokodum, Mambusoy or S, so Mambusai or S, so good to money, so Google is, Saya or so Google is order. Mare give shin let me be deba dan dangwa guishep tini toba la and then twinjin de lo cho mongbu cho go mongbu ne cho na cho mongbu sa yo le che sa gu de go du man ne so chin so gu le che de so yo le so gu le se orda.
Lama Tsongkhapa continues, accumulate by various means the conditions that are favorable for the rising of excellent qualities. And here this expression, excellent qualities, because we're presenting this in the context of doing retreat on meditating on the one spiritual teacher, it refers that one needs to accumulate by various means the conditions that are favorable for the rising of realization in the spiritual teacher, or cultivation of faith in the spiritual teacher. So excellent qualities here refers to the excellent quality which is the objective of your particular meditation.
Zana tumbi cho go dumasine na so yorwa de bene go dumasida jige cha chebe cha chene ne tunyen cho saya ane jige chebo phine tunyen cho saya ane gora gorje tunyen cho saya dine ane kajin je je bene dyenba dyen je tunyen cho saya ge dine gi odu shine ne manje phuya la so ba da dine thone ne ji cho saya ge da ne 고선다 되니까 초사단 미러서 고망부 요래 사단게 고두만 되니 요래 뒤뒤에 싸오래 사시송도와.
The various means that one can accumulate the conditions that are favorable for the arising of, for example, the realization of faith in the spiritual teacher can include prostrations, offerings, circumambulation, recitations, mandala offerings, whatever one is disposed to.
상계 랑 차표에 유다 bin 동샤 라숨주 송아 동샤 된지 차세베인데 되네 동화시베 라숨주 송아 차사 안에 랑게 라마다 고 예메 삼다 안데 안지기 라미 되네기 구송 도교수 연대제 안지기 랑리아 안지기 된지게 상계의 랑게 라미기 넘버 2 정하들려确定 백게진 침보래 세베게 되네기 돈 루신의 삼다제 안데바제다 안게진 잼비 돈에 차포 있나 되네 네 선남 차세위교 선남 안델리아 안지 랑게 라마나 게 상계의 뭐 예매 삼다들 미바들 랑게 라마 미바데 예제 아니 디수 구송도 연된디게 전혀도 랑게 라미 구송도 연된 점바 차고로 되는 차도 되시는 초사야 되게 차부에나 두스네 차부에나 초사야 디 되는 제외나 랑게 나 chapu sunamsa dele deda nyumdu lamigi kusontu yene jayada tunji kapsu komyaki and minamdigi temba tembi tengorwa on the daddy digi and gomushikabla pengorwa de jayada and dinashi tachi chopu na chopu yu sanjeda and jik rang sanjeda idamna digi rang lama ngo yirme samda lama that denige lama in sempre ngoyeme samda dene kusondu yende andelia ndeba jejido chene do chen chobo puya losoba dene nganjwe do chene chasawa no chobo kora kora ine do chene samda ine jizade ane kasuri nganjwe gewe shinyo komsu kombige that doba yarge toyalia tungen chosa na do chagorwa.
Let's give some illustrations of the various means by which to accumulate the favorable conditions for the rising of the excellent quality of faith in the spiritual teacher. So if in between sessions, one wants to do prostrations. So let's say one wants to do the prostrations to the 35 Buddhas, to do that practice. So the way that one would engage in a specific practice, such as prostrations to the 35 Buddhas, but to do so that is in harmony with one's main meditation topic, that of the cultivation of faith in one's teacher, is that before one engages in the practice, one repeats in brief what one has just done in meditation. So one recalls the many good qualities of one's teacher, one recalls his great kindness, and thereby gives rise to faith in one's spiritual teacher. Then one recognizes that each of the Buddha Shakyamuni and each of the 35 Buddhas are indivisible in nature from one's spiritual teacher. So that then, with that in mind, then one can engage in the practice itself. And as one is reciting the names of the 35 Buddhas, one is keeping in mind both this mind of faith in one's teacher and also that each of these Buddhas are indivisible in nature with one's spiritual teacher. So in this way, one engages in both the practice of the prostrations to the 35 confession Buddhas, whilst maintaining and enhancing one's faith in one's spiritual teacher. So the main meditation purpose of the retreat, as well as this branch activity, are in harmony, are in accordance. And then when one has finished the prostrations and one is now ready to enter into the next session of meditation, what one has just concluded serves to aid now one engaging in a new meditation session with the preliminaries and the main topic and its conclusion. Or similarly, if one is doing one's commitments, and there, let's say it's a sadhana, one there will see one's Lama as being indivisible in nature from the yidam. So with having, as with 35 Buddhas, one starts with again generating faith in one's teacher, then sees the teacher as indivisible in nature from one's yidam, and then one engages in one's commitments, but always keeping in mind, being mindful of this mind of faith in the spiritual teacher. And in this way, the recitation of one's commitment is still or remains in accordance or in harmony with the main topic of one's meditation. Or a final illustration, if one does circumambulation around a stupa, one does so with a clear intention that one is accumulating virtue now so as to aid one's realization of faith in the teacher. And whilst doing circumambulation, one can repeat the steps of the meditation as necessary to keep the mind of faith in one's teacher dominant in one's mind.
Dine samdang jeng han jugi chobo puyada cha cewa da dine ki ngewa chubu gures dine zada chikchidane dusungorwa dine zadi gechembure saji.
Hopefully then from those illustrations it's clear and you can apply it to any virtuous activity such as making offerings. In that one will see if one's making offerings to the Buddha is indivisible from one's Lama. Having generated faith, then one makes offerings.
That Lama de Sangye Mena and the Sangye sometimes Tatara Chagmin Sambig, the Neosirwa, that is the Nepaya Lama the Sanyong or Yermokom said, the kind of Chagina Sambig, some young Sirwa. Says that in it, Zadang, Aranzugi, Lama di, Jidan and Aranzugi, Sangye in the Maying, how to Maro, Aranzugi Nambala, Nashin, and the Ching me number 20, Aranzugi, Tamepik number 20, Nangor de. Doing all Sangye in the mind setting answer Lamadi Sangye Maris and to touch a Kalakawa, Masahago Tumarwa, Sangye in by there, answer the Naidu, as Mikuma Nashin Nangorewa. She's not the name that Anzuki Sangye in the mind said, as you get a touch a Toby Indian, how go a Toby Indian and Malay Badu, how go to your Yomarwada. Toby and then Matu Magibado.
So some people may well have some doubt about whether one's teacher really is indivisible from the Buddha. Well, the truth of the matter is, it is very difficult for us to know with absolute certainty whether one's Lama is a Buddha or not. That really is difficult for us to know. But our teachers do need to appear in an ordinary format, in an ordinary manner, in a way that us ordinary beings can actually relate to. But until we gain a certain realization of faith in the spiritual teacher, we will continue to have at some degree of uncertainty. When one has realization of faith in the teacher, then that uncertainty is removed, is overcome.
Jora inji singyu nga singi melan an ko nga machine ko inji yagu jagu ina kan sa horwa da chesa ko inji yagu jagu du la yu de nga inji yagu singu ko singi de ko inji yagu jagu du sa chesa ko inji yagu jagu mindu sa de jabda majab sa de sosu ge yagu ra singu ne ko jaba de yagu ina yagu jagu mindu sa be ta shu je tu ro wa chesa sosu inji machine wa ji gi mi ji inji jagu ne de inji jagu du ma de ko inji gyapso sa de ka ta 지게 이체되면도 거의 야구 자구도 야구 장면도 거의 인지 따다래도 면상 안 저게 다 주셔야 될 거라 하고 와. 디타 제발도 소소한 인지 야태 신고도 와.
So similarly, if someone asks me whether a third person speaks English well or not, the truth is, I don't know. Because yes, I can speak English, but really quite poorly. And therefore, I cannot tell with any degree of certainty whether another person speaks English perfectly or great or just at an average level or not. I cannot tell. We need to have knowledge and skill ourselves before we can actually know something like that. And similarly, people who are brand new to Buddhism, if they come here, they have no idea if what I'm saying is correct or not. How can they know?
doda, yuda, lami rimbi yubigeta, rangi lama dukshin, pa chashagor, dinike sosora samdangure, lama da sanjo ngo yeme samdangure, sede samdangwe lama di sanjo ngone shirina da trigdeyor wada. Sanji chikita ngone mebe janju sembar bishine, ndele yang zugi Sangye da ngo yeme samdang che delia chebu puya dang cha chewa la soba denike jeba ina da nga zule sangye gi jilab chugu re se ora jilab chugu re se sa da chugu re se da
It's up to us to ascertain the qualities of one's spiritual teacher, his qualities in terms of sutra as well as in tantra, qualities of body, speech and mind and so forth. That's up to us, and only in this way can we come to ascertain whether he is potentially indivisible in nature from the Buddha or not. But if we develop deep and abiding faith that he is indivisible in nature from the Buddha, but then in reality, he is not a Buddha, but a bodhisattva, there is no loss for the practitioner. In fact, one will still receive the blessings as if he were a Buddha. One would receive the blessings by means of him from the Buddhas.
Lama ya sangye ngo yeme she jidu shen so tadu lama kasa sangye lame gi lul ma she jidu shen shu che and then ma ane sangye jin la yung go re she de sung go wa dang zo.
So in general, a Buddha can appear in any form, as any class of being or level of being or any quality or capacity of being, or even can appear as an inanimate object. So the Buddha has this capacity. But if one relates to one's spiritual teacher as being the Buddha, even if one's spiritual teacher is not, one will receive the blessings through him of the Buddha.
Kukuno da suyo di suyo shekyenpa di nganzu sewa hakukurwa. Chisna da nganzu ki tuanpa liya deba che chebo pui cha tuanpa ku liya che tenya deba che chebo pui cha pui sidu. Nganzu ki samlo di nganzu suyo shekyenpa pene ser dan sang dan di yakure sin di liya chebo pui da cha saya chik chagyo marwa. Di liya an di tuanpa ku di ya da Delia Dangazuki Ramneche, Chinlepche, Lama, Sanji, Yeshepa Dinalpa, Juba Yovasa, Sanji Kumunera, Yin Sambi, Mabachi, Delia, Sanji Yore Sambi, Mabachi, Chopu Mado, that is Sanji Marimba, Doda, Jada, Dini, Serda, Sangi, Sushi, Doctor Dili, Delia Chopu, sometimes Pugo Marvadazo. She said, Dini Zang, Anzuki, Gulia Chopu, Diniki. Dene dela kukorongi sueshi gyubje dokdo dela samdang pugo mare cheo puya da chase. Karishin pugo warasana didi kudi pa jedu sangye se di dene chiyore sembege da nambar sumare dene chiyore sembe samdang an sangye se di de shubi meba che dinale shubi meba che che an sangye le ya chas pugo warwa. Dina shirwa daga nganzu tongo doya ku kewe shin anzuki tamabe namba dwenike tamabe namba dwen kewe shin midi pa nganzu ku sungo sujine chisna da korongi dus jegorte korongi chik nanglo chik sangye ki yeshe patike sangye yore sembe da sangye na yinsi kongwe re sembe samdaje chik cheo puyo de dine nganzuki sangye la cheo puyo ki cheo ngone chugoro wada.
And a further way we can relate to this is we start off our classes, we always prostrate to the Buddha image. But if we look at any Buddha statue, we can recognize the material that it's made from, gold, copper and plated in gold and so forth. So if we relate to it as just that, a work of some skill by a particular person, and it's now a statue, if one relates to it like that, the benefit that one receives is quite limited because one is relating to it in a very limited manner. Whereas on the other hand, if one has a trust in the consecration that one's lamas have done in relation to the statue, then one can relate to that same object, but as being, this is how the Buddha is appearing to us. This is how the Buddha is appearing to us. Then when one prostrates to the same statue, one has a basis to be certain that one is actually prostrating to the omniscient mind that is now abiding in this consecrated statue. Thereby, radically, through one's transformed attitude, radically transforming the merit that one accumulates. So similarly, relating to one's spiritual teacher as being in essence the Buddha or the Buddhas, then one will receive the blessings of the Buddhas, whether one's teacher is in actuality, whether his consciousness has attained the omniscient state or not, because of your transformed attitude.
And the Dene Suesha, the Sangi, Lapche, Shuaji, Tachimajin, Maravading, Dingan to get Gubjedi, Chisera, Sanda, Jag, Suesha was. Cisadi, Delia Chatsene, this Sangi and Maracons already door was, Shingi Jag, the Jar was, and Sangas over the Sang was. And this Sangi is Kura Chatsene, Jigmindu alumni, didn't know what they want to meet the sometimes using water. Cause the daily charts and the cause of Sugur was in the rivers in Lagua. And the Sangi Rebel and Sangi Marella Grua, the Relamne, Sangi Relamne, this Anika Sangi Cause of Sugur rivers. The cause of the dinner, this Sangi Jarebe, Doribes mustn't be Tivokuna. Dicha Maradoma, the Char Maralama Char Sugur watches this Sangi realized to the Omarwa, Sangi Marwa, Sangi Manicon, Delia Harchin Chasigor, Sangi Din Dojilia Chasnatigu, the Bejula Chasnatigua, then Chasa Denegi Tigidua Sebeke, me some too rich, Yungurwa, then she Yonsingua.
It's good to understand this because people may well ask one challenging questions. They may think it and they may even ask it. So for example, if we have a large piece of wood of which someone will carve a wooden Buddha statue, someone may say, so you Buddhists, you prostrate to these statues, these images of the Buddha. Well, this tree which is about to be carved into a Buddha statue, why don't you just prostrate to the tree? Why does it have to be put into a particular shape first? Because you can just call that tree a Buddha. Or alternatively, the person could ask the sculptor who's carving that tree and say, so you are the one who's making a Buddha. You in your hands and with your tools are creating a Buddha. Is this how Buddhas are made? So it's important to understand these things, because oneself may question what one is doing, but certainly others may well question this.
Japanese subtlemas on the Dinach Yores, Sangi, Tensutek, Dondala, and the Goodishan Gores. That's in I change, and Delia Sung Pu, and Sangi Sung the Pu de la Ramneche, Di Nalolia, and Di Kundadi, and the Shuxalamas on the chair, Di Nalolia, Sangi Kungu, Shu Yores, and Beke, Mevache, and Di Kundadi, Jane, Sangi, Yama Sang Tumba Sang Jumde. Dinaji Yore, she be Jansuche, Jansute, Dalukudiche. That good Jansute and Delia Chas de Dina de Sangi Kumune, Shu Yore, and Mebache, Chategores, Mado, and Doctor Jada said that the Doctor Delia and the Japsutan Chatego, Madi Japsut Chatin, Japtuya Marwadi. 어디 지금 차체에 가르치 거래에서는 군도를 차체고 가래라는 군도디 아니가 저게 된비고 그 상이 좀 된 데서야 돼. 냐마 디나시 여러 선비기 군도의 제네 니기 상이 된바 상이기 가서 일을 거야게 대야게 촌데 꾸꾸시 다 디네 제네 디나라야 상이기 상이 공회 상이시 슈요레 선비 상이시 디나의 슈요레 선비기 매버제제 안 차체고래스마도 상이를 차체고르마도 이 쇠제비기 규제의 쇠제비 도도들 차체기 요말이라고 그러다가 이제 돈다들이 다른 차체에 대해 들어와던다.
And the person who poses this doubt, they certainly have a point, so one would need to clarify to them that you're right. I'm not prostrating to the material, the particular piece of wood or stone or metal or gold, whatever the statue is manufactured from. That is not what I'm prostrating to. Rather, I'm prostrating, the purpose of the statue is that it resembles what the Buddha looked like. And the Tibetan word is literally a similar shape, is a similar shape to what the Buddha looked like. And I use that as a basis to recall him, to call him to mind, to call the Buddha to mind. That is the purpose of the statue being in a particular shape, is as a basis to recall the Buddha or to call the Buddha to mind. But then in addition is what would have happened previously, that process of filling the statue with specific mantras and so forth, and then thereafter the consecration of the statue. And it's through that process of the statue being filled in a proper way and consecrated that I have now confidence, I have a firm belief that the omniscient consciousness of the Buddha abides here. So it's these two coming together of this form that serves, this particular shape that serves to remind me of the Buddha, help me call the Buddha to mind, as well as serves as some inspiration. It moves my mind by recalling the Buddha, and then with confidence in the process of the consecration, that I'm making a prostration to the actual omniscient consciousness, not to the material that the statue is created from or the particular shape of the statue.
and party do send Jampal Jaya, the Nea Yons Tiguro Vada. She's a party literature, carry drinkers in the party touch in the Rangi Poo, the drinker mother, party bear, whatever some party Yakawum Gomar, Zawaka and Takawum Gomar. She's not party touch in the party party, Digi Kinja, Rangi Poo, the party, and Buddha Zawata and Jampati Jangurua. And the Puina, Pame Party touch and party Pamare, some Pamare and the Pamara Sanga Sujuma, the Pamad, the Parisitan, the Dingy, Pala, the Amala, and Party Dinguru, in a Koshu, Hordi, Maria Lagoma, which is not about Dintachi, your dingy, send Digi, Papa made party touch and Jansu Tajan and Papa change, Papa Malazia Dinguru. On Dinajin, Chibuchiana, what I'm going to charge you a couple. Dembi Gudi Jay or the color, that Dembasan Jim then they said, Denisiore, Sembege, Pajenje, Dinalia, and Dembasan Jim de Kungu, Shuore, Sembe, Kungu de Yore, Sembe Mabajeje, and the Chapuya, Chapura, Puyada, the Chopuya, and Digi or what I'm to.
An illustration perhaps some of you can relate to. If you have had your children, if they were perhaps sent off to a boarding school, or perhaps when they were older to university, and they're staying away from you, if they then later, in the old days before digital cameras, they posted you a photograph of them at their boarding school or at their university, you as their parent, when you see their photo, immediately your heart opens and joy arises within you. And why is that? Your children are not that photo, your children are not a piece of glossy paper, but by seeing them, it touches your heart. You remember your children. So similarly, and it would be the same for your children. They may have taken to university or school photographs of you, have them in their university dorm. When they see photos of their parents, joy arises. So this is really very similar to the role that a statue plays. When one sees a statue, immediately one's mind is turned towards the Buddha or the particular aspect of the Buddha that the statue represents. And then in dependence on one's prior meditation and study, various virtuous minds will arise within oneself. And one ideally should take a few moments to strengthen, make those virtuous minds stable. Then one can make offerings and prostrations. And this then is the role that statues play, or images of the Buddha play, in generating virtue within.
and chike chache gidwa and the sayong ne marwa se odi tiwa yungdwa the nenga nyama tendencies chizan ngi share so do se yawiya.
So I imagine you have either these thoughts yourself or have experience of people asking you, because even I have this experience. Once a while ago when I was teaching, someone asked, why do you prostrate to these images? What is the purpose of this? And certainly in society, when people see Buddhists prostrating, they may look at this askance and think, really, what is wrong with you people?
It
can seem really strange how much value one places on images. We hold them high or we carry them in a particular way. People may think, this is really just stupid. You must be a bit crazy.
Chapuya de Kare Samtangorasine, de good Toy, and the Sanye Chesu Jan, Sanye Jan, good Elatine, Sanye said in the Shure, se be good Chesu Jan. She's not that in it, Sanye de Dinalia, Kumish, Sanye Winner, Shuyore, Sempigi, Samdam Bevachen, Chasu, Sanye Winnie de la Chate, Sanye Winnie Jingore, Sanye Winnie by the chair, Sanye Winnie by the la Chate or that Dondala.
The truth of the matter is, the statue serves to remind us of the Buddha as an aid to help us recall the Buddha. And when the Buddha that we recall is not a metal object, but the actual Buddha, the historical being whose omniscient consciousness abides. And that is whom we make the prostration to. And that omniscient consciousness may well be abiding in the statue, but it's not the statue itself we're prostrating to, but the consciousness of the Buddha, the omniscient consciousness of the Buddha. So likewise, when we see a statue, what we are recalling, what comes to mind, is not an image of a well-shaped piece of metal, but the Buddha himself. Hence, it's a mind of virtue.
Dele Sanjo Kungoye, some Mabache, Debache, Sosuke, Chapuya, the Dinchi, Gabriel Kronzung, Aranzuki, Deniki, Deba, Tempo Zichipa, Deniki, Yoba, in Gabrielia, Kudi, Sungjuan, Geshe Ngores, or Sungjuan Bas, Jezan, Penetration in the Castle, Sungjuan Basada, Lama Dilia, Kudi, the Kisheva, said Sungjuan Bas, a quiet shadow. The Dharamsala the Gaza, Gendisi, Wakishori Sadi, the Dharamsala, the Zongachuting Yuku, and Yamapuan Madushin, and Chiklin, and Dharamsalba, Dushin, Garamchiki, Simjonal, your rest. Chesan Gabrielia, Shemesh Yaduchi. Shemesh and the Gemma, the Nate Sum Gemma shooting at Gabriel, the next Nangudu, Sumuda Yamche.
And further to say on this is you've heard about people receiving teachings from statues directly. So this is how the process works. By understanding this process well and developing one's mind, the qualities of one's mind, this is how advanced practitioners can engage with statues as being living beings. So there's a Tata statue at the Bodh Gaya in the main temple that has this reputation, or is renowned for being a statue that great lamas have engaged in, as well as a Chenrezig statue at His Holiness's temple in Dharamsala. And this is a statue that is said sometimes to smile. And we can conclude therefore tonight on smiles. But if you have questions, then you can feel free to ask. Tsepa and then Cameron.
I had a question about when the Buddhist passed away. In the long time ago, Geshe sort of gives some advice about really relating to that teacher over sort of in a strong way. And do we actually see those teachers again in that aspect? Like, are we going to see all the teachers like, the different emanations of His Holiness and Lama Tsongkhapa and Atisha and everything, as well as our own gurus again? So how we have that, we can relate to the Dharmakaya like we relate to the Buddha, and that I think it can make, I found with Lama Yeshe, it can make very strong sort of way to relate. But can Geshe give some advice how to really relate well to the Guru when they've passed away? And what do we expect in the future in terms of our guidance? Because the incarnations are all different, like the Dalai Lamas are all different.
So just in brief, can Geshe, just to say it back in brief, can Geshe give some guidance on how to relate to one's teachers who have passed, and in terms of how we receive guidance and so forth from them, and also that the reincarnations have their own personalities. It's not as if they are a duplicate of the former, like have the... they have their own unique personalities.
But do we then expect to have the ones that we've connected with in a strong way appear again?
To meet them again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like do they appear once we are able to relate to the pure visions?
Okay, I understand. I understand.
Sort of like a second one. Like, are we hoping to meet them again in that form?
Okay.
Apart from...
No, I understand. Okay.
did the road Penelama Jugi that Lama Congo Source Havene Comba Comedy, Lamigi, Kukombe Lamigi, the Kusuta, the Niki Samdajo Comer Mado, this and that Chu also should, that they never plan to Chu also should to Aji Marvada. Then I educate the Niki, the Lama Koronge, Anjik, Mombana, Anjik, Gui number Shandashi, Dunje, Anjiki, Anjik, Lamiki. Number share of Chevena, this and the church you are Chagurmado. We number Shanda Tunche, Jawa, Yanga Jawa Shandaro, number Tunche, Cheshevena, and the church you are Ragumadi. The Shikumoga Lama Tarante in Chagoma, Kusun Dinashin to the Jaya Marvada, to go to the heart in Mado. She's not that Lama Kukoma digits and a chain also Yanga Shuyatica, also good number Tara Twins and good Shuyatica, Rayamar, Cabo di Merwa, Casaniti, Pumbo Zozarava. She's not that Korongi, Yeshipa the Ajik, Truba Shandagi, number 20 page in the Najik, and this and the church you are Jungurua. Oh, yes, it's about it in the church Yungurua. Nidirwa dire kumadi koron severum chikoto severum chengadunya ma jeju kapla ku condition taharan koron ha chi tushine komyarwa di komchen.
So when one is calling to mind one's deceased teachers, then one should think of them in the form, in the body that you remember them as. And so you recall when you're calling them to mind, call them to mind, for example, Lama Zopa, in the body that you knew him in. But it will be difficult for one to actually see him again in that body, because those aggregates have now ceased. But his exalted wisdom will appear in new aggregates. So therefore they will be, like with all the past lamas, they will be reborn again, but they are born now with a new set of aggregates. So therefore they will appear quite different from before.